Good morning, boys and squirrels. Venom here. Like Eminem once said, would you like to leap hose in single bound? If so, I feel agility may be the perk for you. We'll discuss it more in a minute. We're going to be ranking them from first to worst. Opinionated, of course, so always let me know your comments below and like and subscribe as we get into this. The first perk that we're going to get into, and I'm doing something a little different this time. As always, we have maxed the agility tree as we do with all the others, but I'm not going to max these right off the bat. So we're going to read them, then max them, and some of them we may do a side-by-side just to show you the actual differential between the two, which I think could be a little bit more beneficial. So master the use of bows and crossbows, and then once you get 5 points into it, you have mastered archery and now a ranger. Bows deal 50% more damage, 50% faster aim, draw and reload with bows, and find more bow parts and loot. Okay, we'll max this out. We will do what we always do and bring some zomzoms in. I kind of want to do something different because this is how you stress the importance of this. We can still do 25. This is a hidden strike kind of weapon. It's still a one-shot weapon, very good. But your whole purpose behind here is kind of a more stealthy ninja build to where you're just dropping zombies one at a time. Usually without them being able to see you first, which makes this perk so beneficial. So that alone showcases how good the bow can be. It's supposed to be utilized more as a stealth build, you know? But let's look at the books as well. Can retrieve 20% more arrows. This can be really helpful, especially if you're utilizing a stealth build to where you're going into every building trying to kill as many zombies as you can without waking anyone up. Number 2, craft exploding arrows and crossbow bolts. Leg shots can slow your opponent. This is nice to have. A lot of the books have something like this, but it's always helpful. Craft armor-piercing steel arrows. Very nice. Craft flaming arrows and crossbow bolts. It's good. It's kind of underwhelming for me when you have things like the Molotov. I wish it did more. Bows degrade 20% slower. And then sneak attacks have a 20% greater chance of knockdown. That's okay. And then bolt craft arrows and bolts. So honestly, somewhat underwhelming when you look at some of the other book builds. But with that being said, archery itself, it depends on your kind of build. I'd put it in B. If you're playing like a stealth only build to where you're trying to stay in the shadows, then yeah, you're looking at a straight S tier weapon. But if you're playing a normal playthrough, it's a good weapon to have, especially to help you out getting through a building. But like, it's one of those weapons that's just honestly not extremely viable on Horde Night unless you're crafting bulk ammo of exploding crossbow bolts and things like that, to where it can become more useful. What I would consider my favorite gun, a little harder to come by, but Gunslinger. Settle your disputes the old way and be a gunslinger in the apocalypse. Master use of handguns and SMG. Now you are the fastest gunslinger in Navsgain. Handguns deal 50% more damage, 25% faster fire rate, and 30% faster reload with handguns. Critical damage. 3 successful hits in a short time causes the last shot to do 100% damage. Now to me, I don't know why I've always just gravitated toward the SMG. It's a lot harder to find than most of the other guns, but I like it so much more. You can put a drum magazine on it, as you can see here, so it goes from 30 to 60 rounds, you know? On top of that, if you're crafting ammo for it, it only takes 1 resource of each, to where 7.62 takes 3 gunpowder. So you can craft a lot more ammo for the 9mm itself. Now, looking at the books themselves, the Pistol Pete books, they're not too bad, honestly. 9mm weapons have 20% more range when sighted. That's nice, because you could put a 2x scope on there or anything you want, you know, and get a little bit more range to it. Each successful leg shot increases the chance to cripple, as we've seen with a lot of others. More accurate when rapid-firing 9mm weapons, very huge for SMG. Pistols and SMGs degrade 20% slower. You can craft high-power 9mm ammo, craft AP 9mm ammo, inflict 10% more damage, and then shots fired at point-blank range ignore armor. And that's where you're going to see like the biggest benefit of this itself, because you have this kind of killing corridor type base where what are you guys doing? Get out of here. So let's pull zombies in, and you really get to see the efficient. Are you coming too? That's fine. You get one random Arlene with all the feral Arlenes. So from point blank range, you're doing more damage. So we're just aiming at the head like we do with the other guns, but you can just see how much we're ragdolling and just destroying them. And you gotta think, this is with regular ammo, so if we're using like the high-powered ammo and all that, this has just always been my favorite gun to go by. I could see it being put in A tier because the pistol, again, I said it's nice to have early game. It's nothing special. But for me, I would put it into S tier. The accessibility to the ammo being 1-to-1 for gunpowder, bullet casings, and all that. And then just how good the SMG is overall. With all the mods you can put on top of it, makes me put it into S tier. Alright, deep cuts. Specialize in using bladed weapons like knives and machetes, not axes, to bleed your foes dry. And then you're a samurai and can make sushi out of your foes. Bladed weapons deal 50% more damage, inflict up to 7 bleeding wounds on an enemy, and your power attacks inflict 5. All glancing blows cause 1 bleeding wound. Enemies run 20% slower while bleeding. Killing blows grant 30 stamina. Find more bladed weapons and parts and loot. In earlier alphas, this was always my go-to weapon. Something about it made me always gravitate toward it. And I will say there was another perk that made me kind of gravitate toward the agility tree in a sense anyway, to where when I was starting a game out, the first thing I jump into is agility, and I'll tell the perk. I mean, it may be obvious to some what that perk may be, but since I was jumping into agility anyway and upgrading agility perk itself, I'd always end up going deep cuts. I will say you definitely want to put the 3 points into Whirlwind, because that's going to make you attack 25% faster, and without it, you notice the difference pretty hard. So let's bring these guys or girls a little closer. And let's do this. Assholes. The bleed damage itself is huge. Once you get them all piled in here, it may be better to have 2 wide when it comes to these, because as you can tell, I'm hitting the zombie stuck in front. But it's that 20% slowing definitely helps. But as you can tell, it's taking a while to kill him, for sure. But heads are flying. Alright. So for me, bladed weapons would be maybe top of B tier. I always look back at it of it being so damn strong. And I feel like over time, especially the alphas, everything's kind of caught up and or past it. In the past, I would have put it higher. But now, like, its main thing it's got going for him is the bleed damage. And now you look at it, mods can be put on certain weapons to make them bleed, such as the clubs, you know. For the spears, they have bleed damage. So its one unique perk it used to have is gone for it, making me put it in B tier. Alright, run and gun. Improve hip fire accuracy and run faster while reloading any ranged weapon. And then you are now a deadly trigger man and have mastered the art of run and gun. Hip fire accuracy is improved by 25% and have no movement penalty when reloading. This is huge. When you look at it, the hip fire accuracy is improved by 25%. That's big in itself. But no movement penalty when reloading, this is why I haven't put the perks in yet. I just want to show you probably a side-by-side what I'll do. It's just starting here, and then I'll put the points in and show you just how much faster it is. I think this is just 20 blocks long, but just to show you like how quick. Say we're running from zombies, we've shot, and now we're getting ready to start. We go. Done. The difference between the two is massive. Very big. To where you're running slow as all hell. To where you can run, shoot, and you're still able to outrun most zombies. Now, I didn't talk about Whirlwind in detail. I did talk about it at the end of Bladed Weapons. This perk is in every tree. It's a B for me. By itself, it's useless. With the weapon, it's awesome. Like I said earlier, you need this if you're going to go to Bladed Weapons. That 25% faster hitting is so nice. But when it comes to run and gun, it's S tier for me. The fact that you can have 25% better hip accuracy alone probably puts it at A, somewhere in there. Especially with SMGs kind of weapons, even with your machine gun kind of weapons, you're going to be firing from the hip all the time. So for the SMG, this is huge. On top of that, the fact that the reload movement penalty is eliminated is maybe the best damn perk in the game when you look at it that way. If shit goes sideways when you're in your horde base and they break through or whatever and you're running around in the middle of horde night, there's going to be no better perk, honestly, besides maybe one that I can think off the top of my head that's going to save your life, because you're going to just be spraying and praying. The fact that you can outrun 90% of zombies while reloading is beyond crucial. So light armor. Specialize in light armor to increase the armor rating and armor durability. You have made a name for yourself, and you are feared by nearly all, as you are now a gladiator. Reduce light armor movement penalty by 75% and stamina penalty by 50%. Improve durability by 200%. This is nice when you look at it just for the 3 things it does. If you're going to specialize in this tree, you're most likely going light armor. So it's always nice to have. The movement penalty of 75% is huge. And then 50% stamina penalty is very big, you know. Now, while light armor may not give you the best protection, giving you some form of protection, especially if you're wearing that military armor, is huge, because you're going to be getting a 50% stamina reduction penalty, which over time you can tell a huge difference when wearing any kind of armor. So that being said, I'd put it into the B tier. It's one of those perks that's nice to have, but it's not something you're going to focus on right off the bat. You know, there's other perks that are going to be way more useful and essential for you. And this is kind of like a little freebie for the people who stay for the entire video. I'm actually going to move Gunslinger to A tier. The SMG is what puts it in A tier, along with the ammo production. But just early game, you can't justify it into S. You can because of how awesome the SMG is. But I think a better place for it is A. Just looking at it overall, when you look at something like the machine guns, the pipe machine gun right off the bat, amazing. It goes into the AK, it goes into the assault rifle, like all of them beyond awesome. To where, yes, it takes a little bit more to produce the ammo, but if you're playing a long tier game, that's not going to be an issue, the 3-to-1 ammo, as well as the ammo you're going to be finding and being able to buy from the trader. So I think this A is a better spot for that. Let's go into the next one. So when I talked about there was a skill that forced me into agility every time, and that's what made me go into deep cuts, this was a skill if you couldn't guess. Parkour. This is the most overpowered perk in the damn game, probably. So let's read real quick. Specializes in acrobating, getting anywhere you want to go, no matter how far up or far down that may be. So when I made that Eminem reference about leap, tall hose, and single bound at the beginning of the video, this is what I'm talking about. So 1 point, really no purpose whatsoever, but 2 points is where you pulled off some stunts, but sometimes your hospital bills are larger than your paycheck. Reduce stamina cost of jumping by 20%, very big. Increase safe fall distance by 2 meters, huge. And then jump 1 meter higher. So before I put that in, I'm going to show you. Right now we jump 1 block high, essentially. Can't jump on the 2 blocks. We put a second point into this, just a second point. And now all of a sudden we can jump 2 blocks, essentially saving us from any zombies. So if we're being chased by zombies or whatever, and there's a 2 block high anywhere, we can jump up here and kind of regain our bearings and be safe from any kind of zombie. Where this thing becomes absolutely ridiculous is 4 points. You're now a parkour master and can navigate difficult situations easily. Reduce stamina cost by 40%. Increase safe fall distance by 5 meters. And can jump 2 meters higher and never get a sprained or broken leg when falling. The last part alone almost makes this thing S tier. Nothing's more annoying than a sprained or broken leg when falling. Yes, you'll still take damage if you fall from, say, some of those tier 5 buildings, but the 5 meter distance alone is so much bigger than what most people realize. And this is stupid. Legit stupid. To be able to jump 3 blocks high, dude, you're jumping on some of the damn garages and shit in the game itself, to where you are able to just skirt your way around the game. It's broken beyond repair, to where you'll see a lot of people not use this just because, like, dude, this can get you out of any situation. You got a shitload of dogs chasing you. It's okay, I'll just jump on the side of this damn building. But parkour is maybe the best perk in the game. If you're playing a long playthrough and your whole purpose is not to die, just getting 2 points into this perk alone can make sure that happens, to where you can jump 2 blocks high to where the zombies can't hit you. When you're jumping 3 blocks high, as I've said many times before, that's just broken, to where you're surviving any situation. On top of that, being able to fall 5 meters without being hurt and never breaking or spraining your leg, this is probably a top 3 perk in the game itself. Alright, Hidden Strikes. Specialize in catching your enemy unaware while you are sneaking and they are resting or wandering aimlessly. Let's put our points into this. You are now the ultimate assassin and can deal a maximum sneak damage to your victims. Sneak attacks deal an extra 250% damage. As I've kind of mentioned, earlier alphas, I always wanted to play like the ninja type builds to where I was going into parkour anyway and I wanted to be stealthy. I wanted to use my bows. I wanted to creep up, kill people without them noticing, and would go into hidden strikes. Unfortunately, you don't realize like how underwhelming this is. You one-shot most zombies sneaking, especially with a crossbow or a decent bow. So this really never gets utilized as much as you'd hope. Yes, if you're facing off against like really strong zombies, like some radiated and things like that, maybe they won't die, but if you're hitting them in the head, 80% of the time they're dying no matter what, without points into this, which hurts this perk quite a bit to where I put it in D tier. There's a little purpose. You could honestly justify F or C, depending on how you look at it, but I'd put it into D tier to where for someone who wanted to do this so bad, to be that stealthy ninja building, the only time this perk really gets a use is in that like insane difficulty to where every now and then you're not getting those one-shot kills while you're sneaking along, to where the zombies are a little too damn tough. That's when you can see this perk get used a little bit, but still not justifiable in using the points itself. Lastly, From the Shadows. Specialize in sneaking around in the dark and making less noise in general. Hide in the shadows 65% more effectively. Noise from actions are muffled 50%, and sneak movement is 50% faster. Enemies will search for you for up to 20 seconds. Instead of, I think, the 60 seconds what it is, I think. Again, a little underwhelming. I've used this before. Like, you can have no points in this and sneak around pretty well. And then again, you can have no points or 5 points into this and still be alerted or detected, you know? Easier than what you'd hope. For me, this would probably be C tier. It's an okay perk. If you're going that stealthy build, eventually you probably want this for sure. That 50% faster movement speed while sneaking, very big. If you're doing an entire building sneaking, that's very useful. And then the 20-second finding, and compared to like 60-second, if you're overwhelmed and you're trying to hide, that's nice to have. There's just unfortunately so many better perks to go into than Hidden Strikes or the Hidden Shadows. So that's going to wrap up the agility tier. In my opinion, it has maybe the best perk in the game, but when you look at a few of the other perks, it makes it a very underwhelming perk tree in itself, to where I wish they would switch something else into this to make going parkour, run and gun more viable, you know. But for the rankings, hands down, number one, parkour. It's just one of those broken skills that I mentioned before that could be ranked top 3, maybe top skill in the entire game, depending on how you play. Run and gun, number 2, an easy one for me. This is another great perk, top 10, maybe top 5 perk in the game, to where when you're reloading with any gun, you have no movement penalty. That's so massive of a skill to have. Number 3, Gunslinger, one of my favorites, the SMG. The SMG is so good and probably an S tier weapon. But when you look at the pistols in general, like it kind of drops it to that A tier, to where they're not overpowered, nowhere near it, and nothing special about them in a sense, you know. Number 4 is deep cuts. I kind of mentioned this earlier. I used to love it, and now like it used to specialize in the bleeding skill, you know, in the beginning alphas. Now everything almost can do bleed and damage, so it doesn't have that unique distinction that kind of puts it in a class of its own. It's just kind of meh nowadays. Number 5, Archery. A great stealth weapon, the best stealth weapon, you know, especially once you get points into it. The bad part is every 7 days you're gonna have to deal with a horde, or earlier depending on what settings you have it on, and this is where this weapon becomes extremely underwhelming. Number 6 is Whirlwind. We've talked about it in every other perk tree. It's a must-have when it comes to that melee weapon. All it's going to do is force it to attack 25% faster, which is very helpful. Number 7, light armor. Very nice to have, but not one of those things you're going to prioritize over some of the other skills. So over time, yes, you're going to want it, but not right off the bat. Number 8 is From the Shadows, but it's kind of that The 50% faster movement speed while sneaking, very good, especially if you're playing that kind of build. And then lastly is Hidden Strikes. As I mentioned in the past, this was like one of the things I look forward to most when playing 7 Days to Die, is I wanted to be that ninja that specializes in doing more damage to enemies while sneaking. But as you notice, unless you're playing like an insane difficulty, you're one-shotting most zombies when you're hidden anyway, to where you don't need points into this, which is kind of unfortunate. But that's going to wrap up my tier list of best to worst for agility skills. Let me know what you think down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why? Let me know. Tomorrow will be the final tree, which will be intellect. So be sure to like and subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.